Okay, great. Good evening, everyone. This is the September 29th, 2025 meeting of the Northampton Historical Commission. And the meeting is not being recorded because we are having video recorded because we're having technical difficulties with that. So we're doing this live. We begin these meetings always with public comment. If there's anyone here that would like to get up and say anything that's related to anything that is not already on the agenda, please do so now. It looks like there probably is not, so we will pass on that. The chair's report, I just have two things that I wanted to mention. Well, one is an announcement, and is that we have a new member, Martha Hoppin.
I'm facing the jury.
I know, I told you should.
I moved closer. Everybody.
Everyone's left in this room. So Martha's just joining us, and do you want to tell folks a little bit about yourself? I mean, I have your description here, but
well,
you're a Northampton resident.
I'm a Northampton resident. I've lived here for 45 years in the South Street area the whole time. And I have worked, well, I was on the board at Historic Northampton for a number of years, and I've done my own research interest for quite a while, was views of and from Mount Holyoke. So I worked on the exhibition for that. And let's see, I've done exhibitions for Historic Northampton. I taught at UMass for a number of years, and then I worked at the Springfield Museums for a long time. So.
Great. Well, we're really happy to have you here. And it's nice to have a full group of people. So okay.
I'm very happy to be here.
Well, thanks. The other thing I wanted to mention, and I believe I may have mentioned this at one of the last meetings, but there is an event coming up next week, in 2 weeks, excuse me, October 15th, at Laurel Park. And as you all know, we are all involved, we the commission is involved in an effort to document the historic resources there with the potential for placing the community on the National Register. And this is a visual history that is going to be given by Cindy Joy, who's the historian there. It's October 15th. It's a Wednesday night. It's at 7:30. It's up at Laurel Park in the chapel. Sarah and I can't be there because we have a community preservation committee meeting that night. But just in case anybody is interested, I'm really sorry that we can't. It's like I want to learn more about myself. But if you're around and you have time and you're so moved, you're welcome to go.
Are you going to send the details out?
Yeah, I think Sarah, you sent me the PDF on this.
Yeah, I can send that out to everyone.
I mean,
Sure. Yeah, that looks like a great event, and we're working on the Laurel Park historic documentation, so that puts it really nicely.
Yeah, it's perfect. Okay, that's it. That's all I have for tonight. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve, and those were circulated to everyone from April 29th and June 30th. We can vote to approve these together.
Sure.
Can we?
Yep.
Okay. Does anybody have any comments on either of these?
Mark was attending on June 30th.
Okay.
I will fix them.
All right. Great. Okay. Just so everybody knows, the port of 333 Elm is near completion. That's on one of those. So, okay.
Look like what we thought it would look like.
Well, they don't have all the windows in, or windows/screens, whatever. But yeah, I would say so. The proportions are pretty good.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. So if there are no other comments on this, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Make motion.
Okay, second. Hannah? Okay. I look to Sarah to do the roll call vote.
Well, we don't, since we're in person, we don't need a roll call.
So all in favor?
Okay, thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is the ordinance permitting residential conversion of non-existing conforming historic accessory structures. This is a proposal. And I believe Councilor Jarrett is here to talk to us about that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Good evening, commissioners. This is an ordinance that Councilor Marissa Elkins and I have put forward, and with help from Carolyn Mish and Sarah LaValle, we really appreciate their advice. And the purpose is it's a dual purpose. One is the preservation of historic structures. As it's an established goal of our Sustainable Northampton plan. And these structures, carriage houses, barns, other residential outbuildings, are an important part of our history here, and are certainly vulnerable because they take a lot of work to maintain. And so one of the purposes of this would be to allow for an additional use that would allow the owners to bring in revenue, make them more likely to be preserved. So that's one of the purposes, and the other is simply to provide more housing within the city. There are some 900 and something of these structures. We did a pretty, there was a survey done to determine the extent of how the impact of our ordinance. And the goal, there's also a goal to have these, many of them are converted to studios presently, or could be, and this allows another use that, and just to be clear, this is already allowed for any of these structures if they're inside the setbacks, the standard residential zoning setbacks. However, this would allow them even if they are too close to the property lines. This would allow them to be converted and puts in a few guardrails which I can go into if you'd like. So I don't want to, you've probably read the ordinance itself, and so I don't want to go into too many more details unless you'd like me to, but I'm happy to take questions or explain more as you'd like.
Okay, thank you. Did everyone have a chance to take a look at this, and do you have questions for Councilor Jarrett about it? I know that there's some, well, I'll start. I know that there was some debate about the parking related to this. And I wonder where things stand on that.
Sure. Yeah. So just a couple of weeks ago, the council changed the parking requirements for new structures or conversions, and so generally across the city for residential parking, the requirement is one per unit. It used to be that if you had a structure or a unit more than 1,000 square feet, that two were required. This isn't exact, that there's areas of town like Central Business District where no parking is required. So so that is a change that applies to everywhere. And but for this one, we were concerned that but the whereas statement says flexibility in parking requirements is necessary as these historic structures are already in place, limiting the options for additional parking spaces. So our proposal was that if your conversion is under 1,000 square feet, it does not add an additional parking requirement. But if it's over 1,000 square feet, it would require one space, as is required throughout the city.
Okay. And what are the requirements of the parking spaces themselves? Like, if I'm just imagining, there's a driveway. Let's just take let's say a house and a barn in the back, and the owner wants to renovate the barn for the purposes of, a studio. And they want to rent the studio out to somebody else. They're not the person who uses it. Is the parking need to be like conform to some sort of parking standards of the city in terms of dimensions, et cetera?
Yeah, so it would need to meet all of the standard dimensions, and the requirements where like if you just have a single unit, you can share two space. You could just have a driveway, like one single driveway with one behind the other. But if you have more than one unit, then you need to provide for the occupants of one unit to be able to exit without having to coordinate with the occupants of the other unit. So in that case, it has to meet the standards. There needs to be sort of a pull-in where people, multiple cars could move in and out. So that would be the case because this would be a second unit. And otherwise, I'd refer you just to the standard zoning code, and perhaps Sarah LaValle could speak more to it if you have specific questions about how the parking has to be laid out.
Yeah, I guess, I'm imagining, I guess what I'm thinking here is that we have I know in our local historic district, we really try to enforce a standard, which is to not pave over front yards. And that's happened a couple of times. And I think it's just the local historic district, right, Sarah? It's not.
There are limitations on front yard parking in other zoning districts as well.
Okay. So I'm just wondering if that's been considered at all. If you're having to add a parking space and they have to conform with dimensions of the city or layouts and dimensions of the city requires, what the impact is of that's going to be on impervious surface and, lawns or front yards. That's just, I would just put that back to you to think about maybe a little bit.
Yeah, and that would be a great question, Sarah. If you don't know the answer, but if you don't know the details on those restrictions, but I know that the city, for example, works to prevent more than one curb cut and to prevent more than a certain amount of parking that's in front of any dwelling. But Carol and Mish would, I'm sure, know the exact details.
Again, it depends on the zoning district, but each zoning district has a minimum amount of open space that must be provided.
Right.
So things that aren't impervious surfaces. So sometimes the requirements for parking and the requirements for open space might butt up against each other, and it might not be possible to convert a unit that would be over 1,000 square feet in this case, if you don't have enough open space and if it would require another unit.
Right.
And as Councilor Jarrett noted, there's also limitations on front yard parking, again, dependent on the zoning district.
Yeah. And a variance wouldn't be possible in this situation.
It wouldn't, no. I mean, there are some opportunities for shared parking, but these challenges can arise even if it's not dealing with a conversion of an existing structure. If someone's thinking about adding a new structure or an addition to their home that might trigger these requirements, and this would come up as well.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to look more into detail into those. And one option is, since we're putting in a whole bunch of conditions here, it's certainly an option to add a condition if we feel that the zoning, the current zoning, doesn't provide enough protection.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think the ordinance is intended to create some flexibility, but it might not make sense in every case to allow a larger structure to be converted.
Right.
But it does definitely create that opportunity where it doesn't exist, where the setbacks are not met.
Okay. And the uses, the current uses that are allowed by the zoning would remain the same. So I guess what I'm asking here is that what if someone wanted to, I don't know, start a little home business in the back, and they had a couple of people working for them? That's not really allowed now. And I'm assuming that would remain the same.
It doesn't change any of the allowances there. It depends on the zoning district. There are small home businesses that are allowed, and again, Sarah, you can probably explain more than I can. But I know home offices are certainly allowed. But yeah, it doesn't make any changes to that.
Okay.
Sarah, could you briefly touch on what the current zoning uses are for ADUs or auxiliary structures?
So they are allowed in every zoning district, but new residential units must meet the setback requirements of that zoning district. But this ordinance would create some flexibility for those historic buildings that already exist. So if a carriage house or a barn is located right up against the property line, it currently would not be able to be converted to a dwelling.
And currently you can have auxiliary unit as another, as a rental unit or as a home office, or depending on the zoning district. The use of those auxiliary structures.
Yes, yeah, depending on the zoning district. So this isn't allowing for any uses
Yeah.
that aren't currently allowed in the zoning. Yeah, it's correct.
So then the parking restrictions issues that would obtain would be the same as they would be if you were doing new construction. Right? So we're just talking about the difference is setback. So all the other things like parking, it would be the same standards as the standards for new construction that already exist.
Correct. And Councilor Jarrett, that question was about parking requirements. So that this ordinance only creates flexibility for the setbacks, so that it doesn't waive any parking requirements that otherwise exist in the zoning, correct?
No, it does. Item E.
Just for
If you're doing a small conversion under 1,000 square feet, then it allows flexibility in parking requirements, and that purpose, the purpose of that was recognizing that there may be situations where a family or whoever is using the property doesn't need additional parking, but wishes to do this conversion, and that it might not actually be possible to do it because of open space requirements, because of just the physical geography of having to create. Essentially, you can't just add on to your driveway, several spaces. You have to do a pull-in, and so it does allow more flexibility, specifically for these smaller units.
The section here, minimum footprint of the original structure must be 200 square feet. So if you had a small structure, that's non-conforming due to setbacks, could you then build an 800 square foot structure non-conforming, basically adding 600 square feet to this 200 square foot wall outbuilding? So could you do an addition onto this non-conforming structure that continues to be non-conforming with regards to setbacks?
So it depends on where you build the footprint. So item A speaks to that expansions of the footprint that meet the residential setback are permitted. So, for example, if your structure is a few feet into the setback, so it would not normally be allowed to be converted, you can add you can add areas that are within the setback. So what we don't want to do is have people basically adding to the areas that normally would not be permitted. Was that clear?
Section A. Yes, answer my question.
Anybody else have questions? I think this is a really innovative approach to saving these historic structures, as we're so concerned about them, and we've been losing so many of them over the last kind of 15 years. So I'm hoping that this is successful. Do you anticipate pushback on it?
Well, I'm hoping that this will bring together a diverse group of people who have many different desires. For example, obviously, there's many people who want to see more housing. There's many people who don't want to see more demolitions, want to see historic structures preserved. I think that it would mean that there would be fewer trees cut down, because if you're just converting an existing rather than building. So I hope that it will bring together a diverse group. I do see concerns being raised, and perhaps we will have to make some changes to address from people who are neighbors to these current structures, who are concerned about privacy, and so we've thought a lot about that through the process, and we have made some changes, but we think that the benefits outweigh the possible losses there, and that that the fact that these buildings have been there for probably the entirety of most people's tenure on the property, or their neighbors, for their neighbor, means it's not going to be a big change, and that already you can have a studio here that could certainly look over your neighbor's property. So we hope that it will be successful.
And these conversions are also would trigger site plan review by the planning board. So it would provide some looking into where will the entrances and exits to the structure be? How will it be oriented? Are there any trees that are planned to be removed? Where will the parking be? So give the planning board and abutters a chance to look at those.
Yeah, I have a question. That the definition of historic is before 1976. Did I get that right?
50 years. Yeah, I know. Yes, right. Yes, we are looking at post-war subdivisions now. It's historic. And brutalism.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
I would think the abutters would be more worried about where the parking was than
Yeah, and headlights shining
Yeah.
in there and their engines and all that
coming and
stuff.
going.
Yeah, exactly. So Councilor Jett, what is the process for this? Will you be having public hearing on it? How does it work?
Yes, we've referred it to two different committees and commissions, and we're hoping for a positive recommendation. And so yours is one, and then next Monday we've brought it to the Housing Partnership. And then on October 9th at 7 p.m., the Planning Board and Legislative Matters will take it up. And we have an advertised public hearing for that. So I will be putting the word out through my newsletter and making announcements to try to get all interested parties there. And I encourage you also to share that.
Okay, and is there anything you need from us in terms of support, or obviously we're not voting on this?
No, you would be. It has been referred to you for a recommendation. So if you would like, we would love to have a recommendation.
Okay. I can't speak for everyone in the room, obviously, but I'm not hearing objections to this, and that sounds like support. So I think that we could certainly do that. Is that something that should be done in writing? Should it be a appearance at the public hearing? What's the best way to handle that?
Yeah, so a vote of a positive recommendation, and then usually there is a letter, often by the staff person, who would sort of summarize the reasons that it was recommended, and then we very much welcome input at the public hearing as well.
So it sounds like you do need a vote.
On the recommendation, yeah.
Okay, so we should do that.
Does someone have a motion for a positive recommendation on this ordinance?
You want to frame this motion, or I move that we make positive recommendation on this proposal.
I second. Okay. Okay, and then any discussion? Douglas.
On in the section B, key character defining features shall be preserved to the extent feasible. That's a tough some of these structures are in poor condition, but they were passed as the antique clause of 1976 and not have any real character, and then a larger or renovated structure will be there, changing the landscape of the neighborhood. So it's great to try to keep the character of these structures, which is one of the points of this. But it's so easy to say, well, it's not feasible, but we're using this as a stepping stone to building a bigger structure. We're using a broken down garage and fully renovating it into a studio or garage, whatever it may be. So my slight worry is that it gives you opportunity to build structures that the neighbors don't like, clean them up and renovate them, but not because of their historical character, but just because they have a structure that's happened to the city.
Yeah, following on that, would that mean that all of these, anyone who's wanting to do this, it would have to come to the historical commission?
Well,
I don't see that.
I don't see that here either, but since they don't necessarily meet federal or state preservation standards. So then the question is, who decides whether they're historical and worthy of being considered?
Just the
Date.
date.
Just the date.
Well, if I had a beat up old garage really close to the property line, I'd love to make it into a big, huge,
Yeah,
raw apartment,
yeah,
but there's no real character in it because it was built in 1970.
right,
It's never been zoned.
right.
Now I can build the structure, my plan to 70, but I have no real. Cool.
right, well, but the other thing too is that, so you're talking about, Douglas, you're talking about, taking an old garage, not tearing it down, but just enlarging it and modernizing.
Renovating it so extensively, then there's really nothing left because there's no key character that can be preserved.
Right,
Couldn't you do that anyway, though?
Not
But ADU.
You cannot, you need the setback from the property line.
It's
So
the
now I can
setback,
take my
but-
old garage that is right against the
I got
neighbor's
it.
house
And,
and fix it into an in-law apartment. And
that's sort of the point of the vacancies or infill in the city.
yeah, so the
More
ordinance
housing.
is more about infill and
Yeah.
structure use than it is preservation of the historic
yeah,
outbuilding.
Yeah, and it may not come up in every instance, but there are some beautiful barns and carriage houses that currently are too close to property lines to be able to use for residential. So, yeah, so that, in those cases, this would provide the planning board with a tool during the site plan review to say, are you preserving the trim that looks to be in good condition? If not, why aren't you? Are you retaining the cupola or whatever else might be a character defining feature? I mean, and it may be true that some of these buildings don't have a lot of character defining features, but it still provides an alternative to demolition.
But that's it's an interesting question though, because the historic outbuildings that we've looked at and we are looking at in the city, we're going to be inventory. A lot of them are not in great condition. And this provides an opportunity to actually, to improve the structure, improve its longevity, its the way it's put together. But at the same time, you would be sort of you could be erasing historic fabric. So who is going to be in charge of the review of that?
The planning board during the site plan.
So they're
review
going to
process.
decide whether they feel like its historic integrity is being retained.
They would evaluate that on a case by case basis.
Okay, they don't normally do that though.
They do not.
That's where the exists.
But again,
As I understand it, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, we did that with the historic district, the local historic district, certainly, but other than that, it's really just we're looking at demolition reviews, and those demolition reviews don't consider what's going to be built in place of the building. So yeah, that's a good question.
But
Douglas,
because it's a little slippery, because it becomes, historical preservation becomes the pretext for other kinds of activities, and nobody's reviewing whether there's any historic value that's either exists or is actually being preserved, right? That's your point.
My
Yeah,
point is that the one in the Sarah brought up, there are some great carriage houses that are non-conforming that definitely. But then there's the other end of the spectrum, are the 1960 garage, cinder block thing that's just pushed against the neighbor's house.
mhm,
That now can be renovated and used. Great to renovate structure, great to reuse, but we're opening the door to let any of the structures be renovated and built into units without the setbacks.
unless you push the date back.
Well, it does change every year,
Yeah.
but
I mean, if you said it had to be before 1920. You know, instead of 1976, yeah, my garage fits that exactly.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but you could make your garage with huge in-laws.
I can't wait.
Yeah. I
No
know.
wonder you've been so
I agree with you. Yeah,
so that, I think that's something to consider, whether. Well, I'm not to knock on the planning board, I was like, they're great, and they do really important work, but, do they have the capability of really judging the historical integrity of these buildings, these structures, and whether what's being proposed is going to preserve? Or is it just going to be an upgrade or a reconstruct, no, not even reconstruction, a new construction?
Building permitting and expense makes it so we tear down historic structures rather than,
True.
I mean, we see this all the time on a commission. It would probably be the same situation. The cost of, preserving some of these things would definitely outweigh.
And if you look at,
Yeah, I don't know if I guess this is proposing you could build a building, but, a lot of people will be able to convert a carriage house into an apartment that makes financial sense.
Right, and also I know, in my neighborhood, there's a lovely little barn. That would be a great, other use, but I don't think it has a foundation.
Right,
It's sitting
yeah.
on dirt
Yeah.
or maybe a concrete
Yeah.
mini slab.
Yeah.
So that would require a whole, basically lifting the building up and building it back. Yeah, so it's a big project.
and this,
Go to Pat Douglas.
so whereas the preservation of existing historic structures and established goal and sustainability. If that's the purpose of this whole thing, preserving this cool carriage houses and barns,
Mhm.
but there's, as I said, all those 1960 garages and stuff now.
But again, that's sort of the point of the infill and the.
It's just more about infill,
Yeah,
not about
just as
historic
they-
preservation of
yeah.
structures.
Yeah.
But infilling and getting more units, more taxes.
Mhm.
Right,
Maybe there needs to be
Which-
more, something for flagging, like, what makes. Yeah, I mean, that flag for historic preservation more.
Well, the first two whereas's, flagging the historic.
Yeah.
Dimension in this, I mean, it's the pretext, as you point out, it's the pretext for everything that follows. So if that's the case, shouldn't the historic significance and the kind of preservation work or work that's intended at least have some kind of review by folks
Yeah.
who do this stuff, as in the people in this room?
Just like we review demolition.
Yeah.
Of the structure.
Yeah.
And grant or not.
Yeah.
so that adds another layer to the process, which is always something that gets debated, because we don't want it to make it too onerous. Right,
Right.
So it seemed to have to be on a case by case basis. with encroachments that somebody's dwelling is now a garage, they're gonna make it a living space. What's it going to be facing? Are they gonna put a window that's gonna be looking right into where we are? And I know that's with one particular case where the neighbor wants to make a garage into an ADU. The second problem that we haven't even begun to thought about is, what about people who are on septic? If you have a 3-bedroom septic with a 3-bedroom house, and you're gonna put an accessory dwelling onto that property. Well, then, will it now be a 4-bedroom property? Is your septic gonna be capable of handling that? So there's so many, I have my reservations. I will vote for this, but there are so many things that we're not gonna be able to decide, whether it's this commission or tonight. But there's so many things out there that we have to take into consideration. And I believe that if it's going to be, have to be on a case by case study, instead of saying everybody can do an ADU.
So the flexibility already exists for property owners to be able to create these units on their property. The only thing that this ordinance is proposing to change is the setback for existing structures built before 1976. And it is a zoning ordinance. It doesn't create any Title V flexibility. It doesn't create additional waivers for any other applicable permits or regulations. So, if you need to install a new septic system to be able to make this happen, that's either something that a property owner would have to deal with, or maybe it wouldn't make sense to convert the unit or create a new unit. But this is only allowing for that setback flexibility. It's not changing anything else.
Pretty large in most districts. We should do give that buffer of privacy of a window and right against your neighbor.
There's one section of the community where they are putting houses in between houses. And, I know some people are not to that.
Again, if this is in front of us looking for a recommendation, we're about preservation of historic structures, not the info of the city and the density and the city, right?
That's true, although I will say, we have to work, we're part of a larger sustainability plan for the city, so we have to work within that context. And I'm not saying that we should lose sight of what our ultimate mission is, but we can always think that we're working in a larger planning context. Right, Sarah?
Correct. Yeah. And part of historic preservation is looking at ways to allow for some flexibility and adaptive reuse. And working within the context of the community and what the needs are.
Yeah, so I guess we're hearing it. Well, Dylan, do you have any thoughts? You've been quiet.
Oh,
And
and
Martha
I'm sorry,
too,
and Councilor Jared has his hand up.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. I may have missed a couple of the things folks said. It's a bit hard to hear, but I think I got most of it. And the first I would say is that we thought a lot about these concerns that you raised as we were thinking about how the question, right? What's to stop someone from changing it completely and we lose the historic nature? And so we appreciated that. I think it was Sarah LaValle who brought us the language of key character defining features shall be preserved to the extent feasible. And again, it's this balance between, we want to reduce demolitions because currently, if there's something in your way and you want to build a whole bunch of units, you could just reduce. There's nothing to prevent you from demolishing unless those meet a certain historic, or they're in a historic district, or they meet a certain the criteria that would allow for the 1-year delay. So trying to reduce that. And then, so again, remembering that we are in this context where the city and its over really decades now, has voted for zoning ordinances that allow for additional dwellings, and what this aims to have them to reduce those demolitions and to preserve these structures, and while continuing to promote the in-town development that is part of our sustainable Northampton plan.
And one thing that maybe we could do that I don't think would need to be included in either in the zoning language or in the council order, but could just be done administratively, would be to have the historic commission provided with these applications, so that you could provide some input on just on an advisory basis. So you wouldn't be the ones reviewing the site plan, but just issuing comments.
Yeah. I mean, I think that would be really important, at least initially, because it would just be, if we could just get some sort of review and recommendations or review and.
Would we do that via a subcommittee or the entire commission? Speed is sometimes appreciated,
That's true.
speed of response.
Yeah, and I think we could work that out.
I think
Okay.
that's important.
Once they start to get submitted. I mean, we don't have any sense of how many of these applications might actually get submitted.
No, and also the other thing too is that, I think what Douglas is saying, it's sort of dovetailing with him, is that what we don't want to see happen is someone basically tear a building down. I mean, they're not, they're using the same footprint, or they're using this ordinance to allow them to have an auxiliary structure, accessory structure. But they're all but tearing the building down. Like, at what point is it demolition? Is it half the building? Is it 90% of the building? Like, what is demolition? Because at some point it will become just demolition if you're taking everything down and keeping, the front step or something like that. So that, I think, needs to be worked out. So where are we with this? What do people feel like doing? We did have a motion to support in a second. In the discussion, we've raised some issues that Sarah's taking notes on and Councilor Jarrett has heard.
I think the basic
Martha,
idea, I think the basic idea is sound. I mean, then there are going to be some problems, but the overall idea is good. I mean, if I go back to my garage, it's already there, the neighbors. I mean, if there was somebody living in it, it wouldn't change anything for the neighbors. So, and it is probably right up on the property line.
Yeah.
So, and I would favor not requiring parking at all. But that's just me.
How is this the idea of buying the application for the commission to? I think that's what.
Yeah, I do too.
Sorry, could you repeat that last comment?
Hannah mentioned that she would be in favor of the historic commission providing some advisory input to the planning board.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think it would take some of the pressure off of them, just because we sort of do this all the time and we have the expertise that they may not all have or feel comfortable with, because they're dealing more with, the zoning ordinance. So,
And is that just general feedback about historic nature, what's feasible? What are we, aside from having the sort of strict historic district criteria that we're on a case by case basis, just saying whether you think it's maintaining the historical integrity?
Yeah, and if the historic commission were provided with these applications, I would imagine that you'd be, trying to tease out what are those character defining features? How well is this application retaining those? Are there maybe some details that you could consider a little bit differently and providing that input to the planning board for their consideration as part of site plan review?
Yeah, I think that works.
And then anything that was being proposed in the district would come to
Yeah.
us
Yes.
anyway.
If it's
Right.
visible, right? If it's
Right.
visible.
Yeah, and Councillor Jarrett, that comment's far away, so I don't think you heard it. But we were just noting that any work within the local historic district, if it's visible from a public way, would also still require local historic district review.
Yes.
There are 30-something, outbuildings in the local historic district.
Yeah, so if someone were just converting a property that already exists without making any exterior changes, then that wouldn't trigger your review. But if they were making changes that would be visible, then it could.
Right.
Right.
The interview format like we do with demolition.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a little different because we are assessing the historical significance of that. And we're not looking at what's going to be put there. We can't do that by law, but in this case, we would be doing more about a review for historical integrity and also adhering to the Secretary of the Interior standards. That's part of what we have to do to judge whether that those are being followed. So I think that's a really good solution. Is everyone comfortable with that? Douglas?
I'm still weighing on the side of not moving this because it's not really about historic accessory structures being preserved, more about infill and it's more about infill and density and setbacks.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And Sarah, how should we proceed with that? Again, we can vote on it. And will Douglas's concerns get relayed? Is not supporting it, or because if we all support
Does it
it,
need to be unanimous for it?
no. Well, it does because I think your comments are important.
It they'll be mindful and look forward to seeing them.
Okay. All right. Okay. So then I think we should, we've had our discussion and, Michael, you had made the motion to recommend that the, council and planning department move forward with this proposed ordinance. So all in favor? So there's 6.
6-1 in favor.
No,
6-1?
Oh, okay.
6-1.
And that recommendation to move forward with having us involved, the commission involved with review of these applications.
Yeah, and I can I'll work with the planning board and the planning board staff on that. We're in the same department, so that makes things a little bit easier.
Good. All right. Great. So
Thank you all very much. I appreciate your comments.
sorry that we couldn't see you, but
Yeah. I'll have to come in person sometime.
okay. All right. The next item on the agenda is the Three County Fair Grandstand Rehabilitation Project. And is there someone here to talk about that?
So they let me know that they wouldn't be able to make it tonight due to a family emergency. So that will be on a future agenda.
Okay, all right. That sounds fine. The other items on the agenda are updates, but I thought I would, I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but Hannah, you've been working some on the historic plaques. Do you want to give an update on that?
Sure. We talked about inquiring to Honor Craft, which is a place in Connecticut, about bronze. Well, about creating a design, like a unified design for historic markers around the city, and also a medallion to be awarded for historic preservation that can be on the exterior of houses. And I think only the three of us, Martha, Douglas, and I were here for that meeting, and Sarah, and we talked about, we all sort of agreed that bronze would be the best material for that, so that's like where I'm starting. And I met with Honor Craft, I had a couple meetings with them, and I met with another outfit, which also actually that I have worked with, and just to get some comparison.
Yeah.
And I got some initial numbers. I think the next part of the process will be the design process. So just for an initial conversation, I sent our city's wheel example, and that's the finished dimension, and sort of talked about maybe taking some of those elements of steel to work on that design. And now we need to actually work on time. So Sarah, I need to understand the budget that we have to work with, sort of move forward with either company to get
Okay,
ideas generated for us to review. And Dylan, maybe I could pick your brain or come to the library to pull some imagery and maybe some graphics that might be of interest that we can all review, not that I'm interested, but that I can bring back. That's sort of the next steps. So Honor Craft was gonna work on some preliminary ideas and actually have something to show for us, but they don't have time. They're gonna do that within like a month.
Okay.
Artifacts, if we supply them some examples, like I just talked about getting something from Dylan, and maybe working with the steel, we need to put some hourly rate to get started on some design. So I don't know how you guys all want to proceed.
okay, so we wouldn't, and we don't really have much of a budget
Okay.
to work with.
Okay.
And we would only be able to reimburse for work completed, so we couldn't give them like a retainer
Okay.
to work. But you and I could talk about the details about
Okay.
that. That'd be fine. We can figure something out.
I think maybe just because I can volunteer some of my design time, but I definitely need, I think that we all agree that we want professional design work behind this, because that hasn't happened yet within the city. So if you and I could talk about the details of maybe reimbursing me for an hour or two of design time with someone. I don't know if that's something we all have to go through, or I don't know how to move forward.
Well, there's a couple of things we could do with this. I mean, if we're thinking about coming up with sort of like a program for historic preservation related signage, so like the historic districts and the plaques or the buildings. It seems to, maybe there are other things too, I don't know. It seems to me that it would make sense to hire you or, graphic designer to work with us on this.
We couldn't hire you. That would be a conflict of interest in fiction, right?
You could work.
Yeah. Okay,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. And, is that something we can apply for CPA funds to do?
Yeah, definitely.
So
I mean, we do have from the Historic Commission gift account and the sale of the books at Historic Northampton over time, a little bit of a budget to work with. I'll have to look it up. Yeah. I mean, it's not a ton, but we do have some availability. So maybe we could get to a point where we have a design and then could apply for CPA funding to make some.
Okay.
And do we need more than one, or do we, I think that all of us probably want to review more than one design.
Yeah, I think so. It's always
Yeah.
good to have alternatives. Yeah. So I guess the question is, how much money do you think you would need, or the designer would need to do this? And whether, we have enough money in our account to pay for that. If we don't, can that get built into a CPA application to hire a graphic designer?
And thinking about the application, I think it would be nice to think about, specifically what plaques that we want to be
Mhm.
for the city.
Yeah.
And this encompass like two initially, two,
Mhm.
and have, then we'll have a design.
Right.
Maybe that can be replicated.
Yeah.
In other places, but I think outside of the field boards or the medallions, we should consider that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's always the best way to get things done, if you can, is to hire a professional and have them, be a consultant to us, basically, and, coming up with these ideas, and we'd have to come up with the scope of work, but I think that's CPI eligible, wouldn't it be?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, because I talked about the historic district signs, which are terrible. The ones we have, the local historic district signs, which are really terrible. They're fading and terrible and old. And then we have the National Register districts too, which I guess Pomeroy's labeled, but the others aren't. So,
Yeah. And I did ask someone in the planning office to go around and do a sort of off the cuff inventory of historic signage downtown. And it's all over the place.
Yeah.
There's no consistent
so trash.
materials or messaging or
Yeah.
appearance to it at
Yeah.
all.
And therefore, no one's, don't see them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and it was an interesting exercise because we were all in the office looking for pictures like we've never even noticed this, but then it's we walk by it every day.
I think I'm really motivated by the project. I think it's a really great idea, and I'm happy to keep like driving the application
Yep.
and the project forward.
Good.
So yeah, I guess the next steps I'll come to the library and take that with you, and then I guess we can I can bring some materials into review in the next couple months. I mean, the people that I've spoken with are ready to go whenever we're ready, essentially.
Okay.
And I have some sense of pricing to share. Yeah.
And over those sign companies that raise bronze, but
Yeah. Mhm. They also talk about other materials and other things like, reverse etching, came up, and quartz, etching and quartz, which I don't love at all, and make them the integrity of that is good for exterior. I mean, no, the material blue, I don't know if it's the right thing, but yeah, I think that's that.
Yeah, I think it is too. I mean, aluminum is also possible too.
Aluminum could be possible maybe for
I just
the
don't think-
medallions, but yeah.
May I ask, you're
Right.
talking about a plaque to put on a building,
Yeah, so
like about this size? or this size?
it's all open for debate, actually, but we're thinking about, as a commission, reinstating historical preservation awards throughout the city. And so we as a commission can decide what that means exactly, or how we're gonna award them, or how many they hear. But we were imagining at the last meeting that would look like, for the awards that we would grant to building owners and homeowners, would be like a small brass medallion.
So that's. the
Yeah, 5 or
medallion
6 inches
in-
in
like
diameter.
Like in cemeteries.
Right, yeah, and it would be consistent and recognizable, and would go on the exterior of an outbuilding or a building or a residence. And then there's no unified design in the city. Besides, I guess, the city seal that was remade 5 years ago or so, you said?
Well, that's been the seal for a long
But there was like-
long time. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we were just talking about the revamping some of the plaques and historical markers around the city with a more unified look. While we're thinking about this award.
That's right. The seal was designed by a member of the Shepherd family.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So, yeah.
And every once in a while, people will reach out like, hey, I have a historic home. I'd love to get a plaque. Does the, and I would pay for it myself as a property owner, but does the city have
Yeah.
a place where I could order one? And we don't currently have any program like that available.
Yes, we were thinking like the awards to build out that program where people could also purchase it as well.
Well,
Is-
thank you.
Yes,
Is there any,
want to help me, I could use it.
is there any mechanism for people to donate towards this? So it seems to me like small donations might be something that would be helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I would throw in $100 for this a year, that kind of thing. So is there a way to do that, or does that become complicated?
I mean, the commission accepts donations generally. We don't have at least at the moment, a dedicated account for this type of thing. It might not lend itself as well as other projects would to donations, like the state hospital memorialization, the fountain restoration was one that got a lot of donations. But with this one, people might say, well, why would I, pay to put a plaque on someone else's house? Let
Yeah,
them do that.
Why don't
So-
they fit?
Well, it sounds to me like we're talking about something that's gonna kind of try and come up with a design format that could be used in various contexts. So, for example, the Florence Historic District kind of initiative that's going on now should, in some way, if they start doing signage associated with that at some point, that it would make sense that the design have some kind of resonance with this kind of.
100%, which is why, yeah. And I guess the idea is rather than fundraise, we make a design and a material that people want to buy.
Yeah,
That would be,
yeah,
cool.
I see.
Yeah,
But like Laurel Park, obviously with Laurel Park. It's a potential area as well. It
Yeah,
seems like.
yeah.
So, Saratoga Springs, so people from ever been to Saratoga to the race course, the
Yeah.
New York City. They have a plaque program. It's a preservation foundation, which is, we don't really have that here in Northampton, but they're kind of they're private, but they kind of act like the historical commission for the city. And they have a plaque program there, and I'll send this around to everybody, because they offer this to homeowners, and also they use volunteers to research the history of the house. But the thing that's cool about the plaque, and again, I'll send you, is it actually has the person's name who built it.
New London has that too.
And
They
the
have-
date?
Well,
Yeah.
they have the architect or any person that
Mhm.
is.
Yeah.
Which I think is.
Which is
great.
really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
These are very simple and
Yeah.
yeah, so I'll send this around and you guys can take a look at it.
which would be a lot of cities that do that, I don't know if Saratoga does that, but. In my research, those are more hand painted because they're so individualized, so that, like, it would be hard to cast bronze for every. To redefine the,
For every name.
like, if we were doing a medallion program, it'd be like to recognize. It would, like, that would be an award, and then a lot of people just want. Historical, like a lot of cities do that, where you can write in, pay $250.
Yeah.
Say, this is the person that. First family that first built your house, but we were sort of talking about that before. I don't think we have the.
We don't have this, no, we don't,
Yeah.
and this is again a foundation, but yeah, I mean, I think this is a standard, they have a standard design for it, and I think they use a different, obviously different lettering because they have different names on it and different addresses. The address of the property is also on this.
I love that idea. I think it would be really cool. So we would end up the same design, sort of think about how to produce those yeah.
Yeah. So that's another way to do it too. I'm going there this week, so I can check to see, I'll take some photographs and see if I can get some more information about it. Douglas,
I think if the design work you do has a paragraph spot in the, maybe separate, but where, as Sarah said, many homeowners like, oh, we like to we'll pay for a plaque that maybe just say when it's built and built it, to have a
But the thing
standard.
that makes me nervous is who's doing all of that research to give you a
Yeah.
plaque? Like, we don't
Well, but-
have the
but-
capacity, which is why the
No,
medallion
we
is
don't,
just like.
no, we do the medallion, but in the design work that you have forthcoming. If the homeowner or the building owner said, well, I'd like to write a little more about that, well, they can pay for that. By having standard font and
Right,
format. They
yeah,
go
yes,
with
we
it.
can provide that, yes,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah. I think that's what we want to have, is we
It's
want
just
to have,
standardized.
yes, a standardized.
Yeah, I'm thinking, all the properties that are in, well, even the National Register districts, I'm thinking of Pomeroy Terrace, we know the origin of all those houses and the dates of them, because that had to be done for the National Register. And the local historic districts, we have all that information too. So, there is a base of information there, is what I'm saying.
So it's almost like we could look at that, the program, we could either have like an award that we've designed that is an award.
Right,
And then people can also buy, like a lot of people want the year of their home.
Yeah, right, right.
There's that.
Yeah.
And that would probably really promote the program
Mhm.
and bring attention to the award.
right,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, if you have a plaque that doesn't involve a lot of elements except words. I mean, that's what would be less of a problem to design, right?
Yeah, I think
Just a
Um,
border.
yeah, like,
Border.
it could be a border, it could be a shape.
Yeah.
No, we should all think about that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That'd be the simple border,
Mhm.
date,
Yeah. One
architect,
image, yeah, yeah,
or no image. Just,
yeah, I mean, graphic, I guess, one of that's
Yeah.
graphic,
Mhm.
yeah. Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's exactly what we should probably, I would love any input.
Okay, so think about it, if you're out and about in the next month, just think about if you see anything, photograph it, or of any other thing. And then, in terms of financing, we should think about, perhaps in the spring, we could get our trip to, okay, great. Any more on that?
When is the cycle for the grant?
January, is it-
Those will be due, depending if it's a small grant or not, like January, February.
And what would a small grant be?
3,000 or less for a total project cost of 6,000 or less.
or the regular round is, would be more. Okay. All right, are there any updates, Michael, do you have any update on the Florence National
I
Register?
do.
Oh, great.
We are now at the point where Steve and I have gone back and forth and we've agreed upon a narrative for the memo that's gonna go to Mass Historical Commission. That's going to explain the sort of premise for the district boundaries. And then we're also assembling an itemized list of all the properties within that with a single sentence or so. Explaining how that particular property ties into the themes of abolition and reform district. And then once that's finished, so we've got the narrative, we're doing the itemization of properties, and once that's finished, we'll have a document that I can look to you and Sarah to take a look at before it goes to the Mass Historical Commission. And this is like very informal at this point, so the idea is to get them to give us a sense of whether the boundaries of the district will be reasonable and whether the enumeration of properties within it is appropriate to that size district,
Okay.
which was the concern in the past. And so from my conversation with Ben Haley, they need a way to sort of like all that documentation that's assembled, they need a way to sort of like pull it all together and sort of have a solid understanding how the pieces
Okay.
may or may not fit together.
And do you need an updated map to go along with that?
The map, so when I send it to you, when we send this to you, then, we'll probably need to generate a map that sort of like speaks directly to the documentation of the sample.
Okay.
But I don't think it'll be real complicated.
Okay. So once the property list is finalized, we can generate that map
Great,
very easily.
that would be great. That would be great.
And if anybody else wants to read the narrative in your market, you're just getting involved, but.
Yeah, I'm
you
happy
have
to
a-
send it to everyone. I just thought,
historical Artist with background, you've done a lot of work in history in the region, that'd be interesting.
I'd be happy to read.
And just for some extra background for you on that, a CPA award was granted several years ago to develop a National Register nomination for an abolitionist reform related district in Florence. And consultants did a ton of research and came up with a district that was like, and it really needed to be a lot smaller and more concise. So, Michael's volunteered to work with Steve Schreiber on narrowing it down a little bit more.
Yeah, it's been a process.
Yeah, well. Way.
Yeah. Okay, that sounds great. So we'll look to get that.
yeah, I think we're a couple of weeks away.
Great, okay, good. All right, Dylan, you don't have any updates at Forbes, do you? Anything interesting going on that we should know about? Besides your.
There's a lot going
But
on,
you-
you know, we're
you're
applying
outdoors
for
too.
CPA funds, we have enough for a theater, we have a lot.
Yeah.
Is that what was on the agenda?
Well, I just, yeah, if there's anything.
I just put in a standing like
Well,
Forbes and
yeah, that
Historic
was going
Northampton.
on.
update.
Since you're a historical repository.
One day I would love for someone. Historic commission, because I have been on. But
So you're the same.
it's hard to find. We'll get that with it, honestly, most of that don't.
Yeah. Well, also you're so valuable to us.
Well, I would still be valued.
Well, we're going to keep you as long as you. All right, great. Well, is there anything else anybody else wanted to bring up? So Martha, I know this is a lot. There's all these activities going on, but we're gonna get together.
Okay, no, it's all very interesting. Good to think. I watched a couple on the TV, on the public access channel. I watched of the meetings, especially the one about the buildings downtown at the corner
Yes.
in the church. So
It was
I'm
good.
waiting to see what happens.
Yeah.
That
me
didn't
too.
scare you away.
Oh, there's any update on that.
Yeah, so the latest update on that
We all
was
got sued.
that the attorney for the property owner has requested a dismissal because the appellants do not have standing, in their opinion, to be able to
Oh.
appeal
Is
a local
that-
historic district decision. Yeah. So the way the chapter 40C is written and what an abutter is and what someone who is able to appeal does not
Yeah.
include the property across the street.
And that has to be reviewed and a judgment made.
Yeah, so if the judge agrees with that, it should be dismissed, I think,
Yeah.
fairly soon.
Okay.
I thought it was more interesting about what's gonna happen to the church, because in the end, when they can't figure out what to do with the church, and then this is like all in stages. The end idea is get rid of the church, but you put all these things in front of it, and then, must get rid of the church. So.
Yeah, we've had a request, well, we haven't, but there's someone interested in doing something with the remaining windows. Which of course would never tell the church. The Catholic Church took some of them out and then they were stopped in the tracks and the remaining windows are still there. Someone that was interested in possibly putting together some kind of a memorial. For the building. I think.
Yeah.
Is it the
I
building?
think, no, I
It's gonna
remember thinking,
I don't think they really know.
if the church is gone, would that change the whole thing? So
Then you mean the new building and
the
all
new
that.
building would look
Yeah.
really different. I mean,
That was a big concern of ours in the
Mhm.
discussions, yeah. And we really couldn't get any information about that. I mean, I think the developer multiple times to us said his full intention was to preserve it.
yeah,
But
well, yeah.
He's a developer.
yes. That's
So
it.
it's plan B that I I wondered what, you know, when the church is gone. If
So it'll have to come back here to get permission.
That we were the first to know.
Yeah. Put it by,
It's all right, because it's empty.
We did approve them putting in new windows in the parish house, but I noticed that isn't really happening. I was sitting at the intersection the other day and half the windows are completely gone.
Every week there's more open. And
So how can it be good for the building?
And it's such a prime spot. I mean, I can see the argument for more housing. I mean, it's just prime.
Yeah.
speaking of empty, open windows and demolition, the one on the end of my street, on the end of my street, I think we're a year into the. About it.
Is the porch still there? Did they take the porch out? I think
Something off.
the building commissioner, I think, actually ordered the porch removed because it's a
Yeah.
safety hazard, but let me see where we.
All right, and are you the Phillips Place one?
It's on Bridge Street.
I know. I'm just trying to.
91 on the left side as you're going out.
Oh,
It's really overgrown. on the
Yeah,
front.
it's in rough shape. October 28th, that one
Wow.
ends.
That will come down.
Neighbors with that builder. Yeah.
It's
got plan.
it's Hansel, right? John Hansel?
Yeah.
I wonder what he's gonna put there.
Fine. So however many,
Yeah, there's.
The wood of Okay, well, if there's no other business, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Set it. So moved. Second, all in favor? Great. Okay.
right.